We continue our lesson in Module 3. It's about steps in scientific invest. Have a look at these steps. So actually, all of these steps are covered in last module, in Module 2. So, but it haven't, I haven't explained in details in Module 2 because this is Module 3. So the first step here is, as you can see, is problem. So problem, what kind of problem do you have? So the way you get the problem, it doesn't matter here, either deductive or inductive ways, both are considered as problem. And when you have a problem, you need to come up with the problem statement and what kind of research question that you want to address. And after that, you move to the second steps, which is hypothesis. Hypothesis, you will explain. I will explain in detail of the days what is hypothesis and how to create a hypothesis. Then, when you have hypothesis, you need to design your experiment. So, designing experiment is like what kind of, including what kind of methods that are you going to use to run your experiment, um, and what are the previous research that may be related to your study. This is what we call it research background, or usually we write in literature review. And next is you need to run your experiment, carry out your experiment by using the suggested method in designing experiment just now. And after that, after you run the experiment, of course, you will have data. So from the data, you need to collect and analyze it. So it's including run the statistical analysis. Maybe you need to plot it into graph or put it in the table, and so that it's easy to see if maybe run doing into chart something, depending on how you want to interpret the data. Because at the end of that is the process of evidence, where is interpretation steps. So that is a very important one, because the interpretation step will answer your problem statement just now. We agree or not agree with your hypothesis earlier. So that is six important steps in scientific investigation. In order to conduct the research, researcher need to look on the problem. So the problem should be based on the research question. What are or what were or what was the unresolved controversy or unresolved problem in the past? A gap in knowledge that you need to fill in to complete one of the knowledge. Have a look for the example I provided. This is an example from one of my article. This is the introduction part. As you can see here, there are all parts about the research problem that you need to put in one paragraph. You can see at the first line, so I highlight the gap of knowledge about the research that I am going to do. And after that, I cited the unresolved controversy of the research. Next is the question, the research question that will address for this particular problem. Next is your turn to try it yourself. I provide to you this article. This is a one paragraph from introduction part from one of my other projects. It's about plastic debris. Can you find where is the question, unresolved controversy and gap in knowledge in this article? So now we go to hypothesis. So there are two types of hypothesis. One is, we call it non-hypothesis with the symbol H0, the small zero down H. And another one is the alternative hypothesis with the symbol H1. So non-hypothesis is the assumptions that we believe is true. So we have, so mean it begin with the feeling that the assumption to be tested is true. So that is null hypothesis. Always contains a symbol is equal to, sama dengan, or less to, or more to. So this hypothesis, this null hypothesis may or may not be rejected. So that's why you need to test before you reject it. Okay, the other one is the alternative hypothesis to H1. So alternative hypothesis is a challenge uh, to the status quo of the null hypothesis just now. So it's generally the hypothesis that is believed by the researcher. So let's say you are the researcher, so that you believe is true. Does you need to be supported. So that's why you need to have another one, another hypothesis to counterpart the null hypothesis just now. So null hypothesis usually we write it that not equal to. So tanda sama dengan and dash in the middle. That one is alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is always about a population parameter, not about a sample statistic. This example show you how you can create hypothesis from the research title. Look at this one. The title is Enhancing Visual Perception in Inversely Perspective Mapping Imagery. So from there, you can see the underline is where you need to create the hypothesis. That is the important part in the title. So enhancing, that is keywords, visual perception, another one, inverse perspective mapping. So the hypothesis is visual perception of the inverse perspective mapping imagery can be enhanced. So the next statement is how you can enhance it with consideration of variation of the blah 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 blah. So from the hypothesis there, so that is what you believe just now. You believe that the visual perception can be enhanced. That is the main point. So research question, you need to ask how to enhance it, because just now in the hypothesis you said that you can enhance it by considering the variation of the pitch, yaw, and roll angles of the camera. So how to stabilize that thing so that you can get the accuracy of IPM. IPM is short form for inverse perspective mapping. And question number 2, how to fuse data from IPM imagery and IMU data. So that's another question. Once you have accuracy of the uh, enhancement, how do you fuse the data? And next, how to enhance visual perception of the IPM imagery. Okay, so that's a 3 research question, and from 3 research question you should have 3 objectives as well. Each objective will answer each 8 questions. So from there you can see that objective number 1 is to regulate the impact of the blah 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 blah, and in objective number 2 to fuse uh, something from the question, and number 3 is to enhance visual perception. So that is how you can create your hypothesis from the title and the research question from the hypothesis, then generate objective. Very important to know. Now we move to experimental research. There are 4 types of experimental research. The first one is controlled scientific experiment. Second one is correlation studies. The third one, data collections and analysis. And the fourth one is computer modeling. If you are planning to do research as a first type, you need to make sure that you have a control and also the experiment. But when you want to change something, some variable, you cannot change both. You need to have one independent variable, what actually you change, and dependent variable, what do you observe, and the next one is controlled variable, what you keep the same from the beginning of your research, from the beginning of your study. If you keep changing everything in one time, so you will not know which one is actually giving you the changing. So please change one at a time.